Play this, and I'll give you $100 million, Billionaire mocked. Maid's daughter did. He was speechless. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. In a luxurious mansion on the outskirts of a bustling city, the atmosphere was thick with wealth and power. The grand marble floors, shining with a pristine luster, echoed under the feet of the elite guests gathered for a private event. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling like diamonds, casting their warm glow across the room. The air was filled with the fragrance of expensive perfumes and the hushed murmurs of executives, celebrities, and tech moguls. At the center of it all was the billionaire, Victor Sterling, the founder and CEO of Sterling Industries, a multi-billion-dollar technology empire. Victor was known for his sharp mind, ruthless business tactics, and lavish lifestyle. Today, however, his confidence would meet an unexpected challenge. Standing at the edge of the room, unnoticed by the majority of the guests, was a young girl, no older than 12. Her name was Emily, and she was the daughter of the maid who worked at the mansion. She had been told to stay out of sight and quietly observe while her mother worked. But despite her mother's warnings to remain invisible, Emily couldn't help but listen to the conversations happening around her. She had grown up around the mansion, but today felt different. Victor Sterling, standing at the head of a table filled with his closest associates, was discussing his latest project, a groundbreaking invention that could change the future of energy. As he spoke, his words were laced with arrogance, a tone of superiority that made Emily uncomfortable. "I'll give anyone $100 million if they can fix this," he mocked, pointing to the high-tech machine that sat in the center of the room, a machine designed to revolutionize the energy industry. The guests chuckled at his words, the challenge more of a joke than a serious proposition. Emily felt a surge of anger rise within her. She had spent hours cleaning this very room, scrubbing away the remnants of the elite's mess, while they mocked those less fortunate. She glanced at her mother, who was quietly serving drinks to the guests, her tired eyes betraying the exhaustion of working multiple jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. Emily knew her mother had never been given the chance to prove her worth, much less her daughter. But today, something inside Emily stirred. The machine that Victor had mocked was not just a complicated piece of technology. It was a puzzle, and Emily had a knack for solving puzzles. Her curiosity had led her to explore the mansion's library, where she had read books on engineering, physics, and mathematics. She had always been told she was too young, too inexperienced, but the truth was, Emily understood things that most adults couldn't even comprehend. The challenge was simple: fix the machine, and $100 million was hers. But to Emily, it wasn't about the money. It was about proving that even someone like her, someone invisible in the eyes of the powerful, could make a difference. "My mom can't, but I can," she whispered under her breath. With a deep breath, Emily walked toward the machine, her small hands trembling with anticipation. She knew that the room was watching her, waiting for her to fail. But she didn't care. She had something they didn't, a mind that could think beyond the obvious. As she approached the machine, the room fell silent, and all eyes were on her. Victor's face twisted into a smug grin, confident that this child could never solve the problem. But Emily was about to prove him wrong. "I will fix the machine, and then they will understand." The thought echoed in Emily's mind as she stepped closer to the high-tech machine. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she did her best to steady her hands. She was not nervous. This was not about impressing anyone or showing off. This was about proving that she could do something no one else believed she could. The machine in front of her had been the subject of mockery for hours. Billionaire Victor Sterling had challenged anyone in the room to fix it, but no one had been able to do so. The machine was an intricate puzzle of wires, panels, and flashing lights that had stumped some of the world's brightest engineers. But to Emily, this was nothing more than a game. She had always been good at solving problems, seeing things others couldn't, and understanding complex concepts that most of her peers wouldn't even dream of. She leaned in, her fingers grazing the smooth surface of the machine as she studied it carefully. She could hear the hushed whispers behind her, the guests who still doubted her ability. She could sense the mocking tone in Victor's voice from earlier, and how the engineers had laughed when she walked up to the machine. But Emily wasn't fazed. She had been underestimated her entire life. She was used to being overlooked, ignored, and even ridiculed. It was nothing new. But today was different. She wasn't going to let them define her. As she studied the machine, Emily recalled the things she had learned from her books. She had spent hours reading about electronics, engineering, and physics. While other kids her age were playing games or watching TV, Emily had her nose buried in books about complex systems, about how things worked. She had an innate understanding of mechanical structures, something she had inherited from her great-grandfather, who was a brilliant engineer. The machine in front of her was broken, and she could see where it had failed. She quickly noticed a faulty connection in the wiring, a small but critical issue that was causing a cascade of errors. With a steady hand, she began to work. The room was silent now, every eye in the room fixed on her. No one moved. The tension was palpable. It was as if time had frozen. The only sound was the soft click of her fingers as she adjusted the wiring. Victor stood by, his arms crossed, his smug grin still present on his face. He didn't believe she could do it. None of them did. But as Emily worked, she could feel the energy in the room begin to shift. Slowly, the machine hummed to life. The once dead panels flickered on, the lights turned bright, and the system began to stabilize. The engineers, who had been skeptical, now leaned forward in shock. They couldn't believe it. Victor's eyes widened as the machine started working flawlessly, exactly as it was supposed to. It was only a matter of moments before the system was fully functional. Emily stepped back, her work complete. The machine was now operational, a perfect example of the brilliance that had been hidden in plain sight. The room erupted into stunned silence. No one knew how to react. Victor's face, once full of arrogance, was now pale. His jaw dropped. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Emily turned to face him, her expression calm and confident. She had done it. She had proven that she was not just some invisible maid's daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with. The guests looked at each other, some with disbelief, others with admiration. No one had expected this. The challenge had been a joke, a test that no one thought would be taken seriously. But Emily had shown them all what she was capable of. She had proven that no one, no matter their background, should ever be underestimated. As the silence lingered in the room, Emily stood tall, a quiet smile playing at the corners of her lips. She had won. And in that moment, everything had changed. The room remained frozen, the silence deafening. Emily stood there, still and calm, as the machine hummed softly, now fully functional. The atmosphere was thick with disbelief. Victor Sterling, the billionaire who had mocked her just moments ago, stood motionless, his jaw still hanging open. The guests, once confident in their assumptions, now stared at her with a mixture of shock and admiration. No one knew what to say. The unspoken truth had hit them all at once. The maid's daughter, the one they had dismissed as invisible, had just outsmarted them all. Victor's eyes flickered from the machine to Emily, as though he was trying to comprehend what had just happened. For a moment, the weight of the room's attention was too much for her. She looked down at the ground, the adrenaline from the moment starting to settle. She had done it. She had proven them all wrong. But in the quiet aftermath, she felt a surge of pride that she couldn't suppress. Her hands shook slightly, but she held her head high. It wasn't just about fixing a machine. It was about showing that anyone, no matter their background, could make a difference. How did you do that? Victor's voice finally broke the silence, his words sharp and filled with disbelief. Emily glanced at him, her gaze unwavering. It's simple. You didn't look closely enough, she said softly. The words weren't meant to boast, but they carried a weight that left Victor speechless. His arrogance had blinded him, and now he had been shown that brilliance doesn't care about who you are or where you come from. The guests around them exchanged looks, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others with respect in their eyes. For the first time, Emily felt seen, truly seen. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was a genius, and they all knew it now. Victor, still in shock, seemed to struggle with his next words. I didn't think you could, he began, but Emily interrupted him. You didn't think I could because you never gave me a chance, she said, her voice steady. The room went quiet again. Her words hung in the air, as if everyone was finally understanding the truth. I never wanted your $100 million, Emily continued. I don't need it. What I need is for people like you to stop assuming that others are inferior just because of where they come from. There was a long pause, and then Victor slowly nodded, his expression changing. The arrogance that had once defined him was now replaced with something else, recognition, perhaps even respect. I was wrong, he said quietly. The words felt strange coming from him, but they were real. You've earned more than just my respect. Emily didn't know how to respond. She had never expected to hear those words from him. She had never imagined that she would change someone like Victor Sterling. But she had, and that realization made her chest swell with pride. As the tension in the room began to lift, the guests slowly started to applaud. It wasn't the loud, forceful applause of a performance. It was a quiet, respectful acknowledgement of what Emily had just achieved. She had made them see the truth, and that truth was more powerful than any money or fame. Emily turned to her mother, who had been standing at the edge of the room, her face filled with uncertainty. When Emily's eyes met hers, her mother's expression softened. There was pride in her gaze, and for the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hide in the background. In that moment, Emily knew that she had not only changed the way the world saw her, but also the way she saw herself. She wasn't just the maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who could change the world. As the applause died down, the room slowly returned to its usual chatter. But something had changed in the air. The guests, who had once seen Emily as nothing more than a quiet child in the background, now looked at her with a new sense of respect. Even Victor Sterling, who had mocked her so mercilessly just hours ago, seemed to have softened. His arrogance had been replaced with an acknowledgement of her talent. Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in her life, she no longer felt invisible. As she stood there, her mother approached her, a proud smile on her face. Her mother had always been the quiet, humble worker, the one who had raised Emily to be strong but never to seek recognition. But today, things were different. Today, her mother knew that Emily had done something remarkable. I knew you were special, her mother whispered, her voice filled with emotion. But I never imagined this. Emily smiled, her heart swelling with pride. I didn't do it for the recognition, Mom. I just wanted to show them that we're capable too. The warmth in her mother's eyes told her everything she needed to know. But even as she stood there, feeling proud of herself and the respect she had earned, a new sense of determination began to settle in. This wasn't just a one-time thing. She had proven herself today, but she knew this was only the beginning. She could do more, achieve more, and fight for more. And she wasn't going to stop until she made sure no one else was ever underestimated again. Victor Sterling, still in shock, walked over to Emily and her mother. I owe you an apology, he said quietly, his voice lacking its usual confidence. I never should have underestimated you. Emily looked at him, her gaze steady. You're not the only one who underestimated me, she said, her voice calm yet firm. Victor's face softened, and for a moment, Emily saw something she had never expected, genuine respect. You've proven yourself today, he said, his voice now more sincere. And I'd like to offer you something more than just an apology. How about we work together? I could use someone like you on my team. Emily hesitated. She had spent so much of her life being overlooked, but now, for the first time, someone saw her for who she truly was. Still, she knew that she didn't need anyone's approval to be great. Thank you, but I'm not looking for a handout, she replied. I'll make my own path. Victor nodded, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I respect that, he said, but if you ever change your mind, the offer stands. As the night went on, the atmosphere in the room shifted. What had started as a joke, a challenge that no one thought would be taken seriously, had turned into something more. Emily had proven that brilliance wasn't bound by wealth, status, or background. She had earned the respect of a billionaire, not through money or power, but through sheer talent and determination. And as she left the mansion later that night with her mother by her side, Emily knew that her life was never going to be the same. She had shattered the expectations of those around her, and in doing so, she had finally started to see the limitless possibilities ahead of her. The next morning, Emily sat at the kitchen table, a warm cup of tea in her hands, trying to process everything that had happened. The events of the previous night felt like a dream, a whirlwind that had completely shifted the course of her life. Her mother was at the stove, making breakfast, her movements steady and familiar. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the room, but Emily's mind was elsewhere, still reeling from the way everything had unfolded. Her mother glanced over at her and smiled. "You're quiet today," she said softly. "Still thinking about last night?" Emily nodded slowly. "It's just, everything happened so fast. I didn't expect things to turn out this way." Her mother set the spatula down and walked over to the table, sitting down across from her. "You proved something to them, Emily," she said, her voice full of pride. "You proved that you are more than just a maid's daughter. You are someone capable of great things." Emily took a deep breath, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I know, but it feels like the world's expectations of me have changed overnight. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this." Her mother reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You've always been ready. You've always had the potential. Now it's just about showing everyone else what you're capable of." Emily looked up, meeting her mother's gaze. She could see the hope and belief in her eyes, and for the first time, she believed it too. She had always known she was different, but now she was starting to see the possibilities of what she could become. The doorbell rang, breaking the silence. Emily stood up, her heart skipping a beat. Who could it be this early in the morning? As she opened the door, she was surprised to find Victor Sterling standing on the other side. He was dressed casually, but there was no mistaking the same air of authority he carried with him everywhere he went. "Good morning, Emily," he said, offering a polite smile. "Can I come in?" Emily hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside to let him in. "Of course," she said, still unsure of what to expect. Victor stepped into the living room, his eyes scanning the modest space before settling on Emily. "I came to offer you something," he began. "I know you didn't take the money I offered last night, and I respect that. But I want to extend a different kind of offer. I'd like to mentor you." Emily blinked in surprise. "Mentor me? What?" Victor gave a slight shrug, his tone sincere. "Because I see something in you. You have a rare talent, and I think you could do something extraordinary if you had the right guidance. I've built my empire on recognizing potential, and I've learned to never underestimate someone. Especially not someone like you." Emily felt a knot form in her stomach. This was the man who had once looked down on her, mocked her abilities, and now he was offering to guide her. Was it genuine? Or was it just another form of manipulation? But then she remembered the look on his face last night, the way his arrogance had melted away, replaced with something more genuine, respect. "I don't need anyone to hand me anything," Emily said cautiously. "I've spent my whole life working for everything I've got. I'm not looking for charity." Victor nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'm not offering charity, Emily. I'm offering an opportunity. You have a mind like no other. And I believe you can achieve things far beyond anything I could ever offer you in terms of wealth. I want to help you get there." Emily took a deep breath, considering his words carefully. She had always known she was capable of greatness, but she had never imagined she would have someone like Victor Sterling, a billionaire, offer to help her. It was tempting, but was it the right path? "I'll think about it," Emily said finally. Victor smiled. "That's all I ask. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door and looked back at her. "Whatever you decide, Emily, remember that the world doesn't define you. You define yourself. And I believe in you." With that, he was gone, leaving Emily standing in the doorway, her mind racing with the weight of the decision before her. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself to step into a world so different from the one she had known? One thing was certain, her life had changed forever. And now, it was up to her to decide where it would go next. Over the next few days, Emily's mind was consumed with the decision she had to make. Victor's offer had been unexpected, and part of her wanted to reject it outright. She had spent so long proving that she didn't need anyone's help, that she could do everything on her own. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this was an opportunity she couldn't ignore. The chance to work with someone who had built an empire, someone who had the connections and resources to help her reach new heights, was something she couldn't dismiss lightly. Yet, she still struggled with the idea of relying on someone else. She wasn't used to it. She had grown up doing everything herself, never asking for help, and always working harder than anyone else. But Victor had seen something in her, something no one else had. It made her wonder if perhaps it was time to stop proving herself to others and start proving something to herself. One evening, as she sat at the kitchen table, her mother walked in with a gentle smile. "You've been quiet lately," her mother said, setting down a plate of food in front of her. "What's on your mind, Emily?" Emily looked up at her, torn between her desire for independence and the reality of the offer she had received. "Victor Sterling offered to mentor me," she said quietly. Her mother's eyebrows raised in surprise. "Victor Sterling? The billionaire?" Emily nodded. "Yes. He says he sees something in me. He wants to help me achieve things I never thought possible." Her mother sat down beside her, her face thoughtful. "That's a big offer, Emily. Do you trust him?" Emily hesitated. "I'm not sure. I've never really trusted anyone in that world. I've always had to do everything myself, and I don't want to lose myself in the process." Her mother smiled softly. "You don't have to lose yourself, sweetheart. No one can take away what makes you who you are. But sometimes, even the strongest people need help. It's okay to accept help when it's offered." Emily thought about her mother's words for a moment. It was true that she had always been fiercely independent, but perhaps there was a balance between accepting help and maintaining her own identity. "I've never been someone who asks for anything," Emily said, looking down at her hands. "But maybe it's time I stopped doing everything alone." Her mother placed a hand over hers, squeezing it gently. "You've proven time and time again that you're capable, but it's okay to let others in. You don't have to do it all on your own." That night, Emily lay awake in bed, her mind racing with thoughts of what her future could be. She knew that whatever decision she made, it would change the course of her life. The possibility of working with Victor Sterling was tempting, but she also feared losing the independence that had defined her. The next morning, she woke up with a sense of clarity. She had made her decision. She wasn't going to let fear hold her back anymore. She was going to take the opportunity, not because she needed it, but because she knew it was the next step in her journey. The path ahead wasn't easy, and it would require hard work and determination. But for the first time, Emily felt ready to face it. She walked to the phone, her heart steady with resolve, and dialed Victor's number. "Mr. Sterling," she said when he answered. "I've thought it over, and I'd like to accept your offer." Victor's voice on the other end was filled with surprise and pleasure. "I'm glad to hear that, Emily. Welcome to the team. I think you'll do great things." As she hung up the phone, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had made her choice, and now the real work would begin. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Emily felt ready to embrace it. The first day working with Victor Sterling was everything Emily had hoped for and more. She arrived at the headquarters of Sterling Industries, a towering building that seemed to touch the sky, its glass windows reflecting the city below. Walking through the front doors, she felt the weight of her decision settle on her shoulders. This was the real deal. She wasn't just a girl from a small home anymore. She was stepping into a world of power, money, and opportunity. Victor greeted her with a warm smile, his hand outstretched in welcome. "I'm glad you're here, Emily. You're going to learn a lot." He led her through the sleek, modern office space, introducing her to some of his team. They were all accomplished, seasoned professionals, and the respect they gave her was a subtle but clear acknowledgement of her talent. Emily couldn't help but feel a bit out of place at first. These were people who had years of experience, and she had none. But she quickly reminded herself why she was there. She was capable, and she belonged here just as much as anyone else. Her first task was straightforward but challenging, analyzing a set of data from one of their latest projects. It involved complex algorithms and patterns, things Emily had read about but never worked with firsthand. But she was determined. She sat down at a desk with a computer, her mind immediately going into problem-solving mode. Hours passed as she carefully examined the numbers, running calculations, and testing different theories. At first, the task seemed overwhelming, but Emily didn't give up. She knew how to break down complex problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. Slowly, the pieces started to fall into place. She identified a flaw in the data that no one had noticed, a subtle error that could have led to a significant financial loss. When she brought it to Victor's attention, his eyes widened in surprise. "I didn't see that." "Good catch, Emily," he said, a rare note of admiration in his voice. It was a small victory, but it was enough to boost Emily's confidence. She had proven herself once again. As the day went on, Emily found herself more and more immersed in the work. She participated in meetings, contributed ideas, and learned from the brilliant minds around her. Each task, no matter how big or small, was an opportunity to grow, and she seized each one with determination. But even as she excelled in her work, Emily couldn't help but feel a little lost at times. The world she was now a part of was so different from the one she had known. There were moments when she felt the weight of the expectations, the pressure to perform at the highest level. She had always been the quiet observer, but now she was expected to be a key player. Victor noticed her moments of doubt, and one afternoon, he pulled her aside. "You're doing great, Emily. But don't forget to believe in yourself. You're here because you have something special. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." His words were simple but impactful, and they helped calm the storm of uncertainty inside her. That night, as Emily walked home with her mother, she reflected on the day. She was learning more than she ever thought possible, and she was finally starting to see the results of her hard work. But most importantly, she was beginning to understand her own worth in a way she never had before. She wasn't just someone's daughter. She was a force in her own right, and the world was starting to see it. As the weeks passed, Emily's confidence grew. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was becoming an integral part of the Sterling Industries team. Her contributions were no longer seen as a fluke, but as a testament to her intelligence and hard work. Victor Sterling, once the skeptical billionaire, was now a mentor who actively pushed her to take on more responsibility. Every project she worked on became a new opportunity for growth, and every challenge was met with a sense of determination that had started to define her. But despite the success and the respect she was earning, Emily felt the pressure of her new role. It wasn't just about the work anymore. It was about living up to the expectations that others had for her. Her colleagues, the very people who had once looked down on her, were now seeking her advice. She could see the change in their eyes, the respect that had replaced the condescending glances. It was a strange feeling, one that made her both proud and slightly uneasy. She was not used to being in the spotlight. One evening, after a particularly challenging meeting, Victor pulled Emily aside once again. "You're doing great, Emily," he said, his tone serious. "But I need to talk to you about something." Emily felt her heart race. "What's wrong?" she asked, her mind immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios. Victor smiled, but it wasn't the usual confident smile. "Nothing's wrong," he said. "I just want to make sure you're not burning out. You've been working incredibly hard, and I can see you pushing yourself. But remember, it's okay to take a step back sometimes." Emily blinked, surprised by his concern. She had always been so focused on proving herself that she hadn't considered how much she was pushing herself. She had learned to work twice as hard to get half the recognition, and now that the recognition was coming, she wasn't sure how to manage it. "I'm fine," she assured him, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. "I just want to keep proving that I belong here." Victor nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. "You've proven more than enough already," he said. "The fact that you're here, doing what you're doing, is all the proof you need. Don't let the pressure weigh you down." His words lingered in Emily's mind long after their conversation ended. As the days went on, she found herself questioning her own limits. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove she was capable, but now that she was succeeding, she realized she had never really allowed herself to rest. That night, as Emily sat at home with her mother, she finally allowed herself to relax. She realized that she had been running on empty, constantly pushing herself because she was afraid that if she stopped, everything would come crashing down. "I'm doing well, Mom," Emily said softly, looking up at her mother with a new sense of peace. "I've earned their respect. I've earned my place here." Her mother smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "I always knew you would. But remember, Emily, your worth isn't just in what you achieve. It's in who you are, and you've always been enough." Emily leaned back in her chair, letting her mother's words sink in. For the first time, she realized that she didn't have to prove anything anymore. She had already proven herself, not just to others, but to herself. And that was enough. As the months went by, Emily continued to thrive at Sterling Industries. She had found a balance between her work and personal life, and the pressures that once seemed overwhelming had become manageable. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone. Instead, she focused on using her talents to make a difference, not just for herself, but for others. Victor Sterling remained a strong mentor, always guiding her when needed, but he had also learned to step back and let her chart her own path. Emily had earned his respect, but more importantly, she had earned her own. One afternoon, as she sat in her office reviewing a new project, Victor walked in, a rare smile on his face. "You've come a long way, Emily," he he said, his voice warm. When I first met you, I never imagined how quickly you'd rise to the top. Emily looked up from her work, her eyes bright. I'm not at the top yet, but I'm getting there, she said with a smile. There's always more to learn, always more to do. Victor nodded, clearly impressed. I've seen you grow in ways that are rare. You don't just solve problems, you inspire people to think differently. That's why I want to make you a partner in the company. You've earned it. Emily's heart skipped a beat. Partner. She had heard about that position in passing, but never imagined it would be offered to her. She had always thought of herself as the outsider, the one who had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. And now, here she was, being offered a seat at the table with the people who had once looked down on her. I don't know what to say, she said, stunned by the offer. You've already said everything, Victor replied with a smile. You've proven yourself, Emily. Your journey here has been one of the most inspiring I've seen. As she processed the offer, Emily realized that this wasn't just about business. It wasn't about the money or the position. It was about the journey, the path she had carved for herself against all odds. She had once been invisible, underestimated, and overlooked. But now, she was a force to be reckoned with. A partnership at Sterling Industries would change her life in many ways, but it wouldn't change who she was at her core. She had worked hard for this moment, and she had earned every bit of it. I accept, Emily said, her voice steady. Thank you, Victor. He smiled again, a genuine warmth in his eyes. You've earned this, Emily. I'm looking forward to what we can accomplish together. As Emily left the meeting, her mind raced with possibilities. She had taken a leap of faith when she first decided to accept Victor's offer to mentor her. And now, that leap had led her to the opportunity of a lifetime. She had proven that no matter where you start, your potential is limitless. She wasn't just a maid's daughter anymore. She was someone who had earned her place at the top. She was someone who had changed the game. And as she walked out of the building, she knew that this was just the beginning. The future was wide open, and Emily was ready to take it on, no matter where it led. In this incredible millionaire story, a young girl rises from the shadows to prove her worth in a world dominated by power and wealth. Starting as the daughter of a maid, she faces ridicule and skepticism from those around her, including a powerful billionaire who doubts her abilities. But in a series of surprising turns, she uses her intellect and determination to not only solve complex problems, but also earn the respect of the richest people in the room. This millionaire story showcases how hard work, perseverance, and the refusal to be underestimated can lead to extraordinary success. As she overcomes challenges and proves her worth, she finds herself at the helm of a promising career, proving that anyone, no matter their background, can achieve greatness. In these powerful millionaire stories, success is not about where you start, but about your drive to push forward and change your own destiny. This is a tale of transformation, where the underdog takes charge of their future, and the story of their journey becomes one of inspiration for anyone facing adversity. From humble beginnings to the height of success, this millionaire story serves as a reminder that anything is possible when you believe in yourself. These millionaire stories prove that no dream is too big to be achieved, and no challenge is too great to overcome.